Good morning, folks. My name is Chef Mike, coming to you from the Minnesota Roth Living Showroom. Our session today is an introduction to the Wolf dual fuel range. As you're getting yourself settled and logged in, you'll notice I've turned off your feed, muted your microphone just to help this stream a little easier. You are able to ask questions. I would familiarize yourself with the chat section and you can type in your questions there. Kelly is also on this call. She's one of our showroom consultants and she's a producer on the other side of the computer today. So she may attempt to answer your questions or she may bring them up to me. Or if it's something that's a little more detailed, I may follow up with you individually after the session. The idea is, though, across the next 45 minutes or so, is to introduce you to all of the features of what I would call the Clydesdale of the class of Wolf ranges. The Wolf dual fuel range is one of the premier pieces in our line, and it's because it provides you with all of the power and versatility of a gas range top with all the precision and flexibility of electric ovens underneath. So we're going to talk about all of those pieces today. And then right towards the end, I will also show you the various configurations that this range is available in. And we can open it up to any kinds of questions. Because this is really an intro section, I won't spend a lot of time on cleaning references for this, but just know that once you have your range, wherever that is, one of the Roth chefs is available for ownership training to go through all of the cleaning regimens and recommendations from Wolf on how to keep your beautiful new range beautiful and new looking. So I'm standing in front of a dual fuel 48 here. It has, my particular configuration has 4 burners and a double griddle. In the course of the 45 minutes, we'll also cook a very simple lunch platter with some scallops, some green beans, some roasted tomatoes, a little grilled lemon, just to give you a sense of how some of these elements perform. I will start with what's on the top, Wolf dual stack burners. Then I'll talk about the char, which is an indoor grill. I'll talk about the griddle, and then we'll also talk about the fantastic ovens that are now part of this range as well. And some of the controls there, we'll talk about probing, and then we'll open it up to any kind of questions that have not yet been addressed. So I'd like to start with just a basic overview of this range. Regardless of the size, the smallest burner is always this left rear burner. It is the smallest output, it's the smallest in size. In front of it is the largest output burner on the range, and the other two are just less than that large one. So in terms of power, this is probably your sear station, that is your low melting station or holding station, and then you have 2 others regardless of what you're going to try to do. I want to start with a little discussion of Wolf dual stack burners. In this particular configuration, we'll just focus on one of these and talk about how that dual stack burner is set up. Now, this is true for all Wolf burners, whether it's a gas range or a professional cooktop, but we're going to talk about it specifically in the context of dual fuel range today. If you look at this burner up close, you'll see that it has 2 sets of holes, one towards the top or larger, and then there's another smaller set right along the bottom of this dual stack burner. This is the burner cap, and it is removable for cleaning or whatever else. But if you happen to spill something on this burner cap or in this well that is acidic or sweet, the first time that you get it cool, go ahead and clean those up. Every Wolf burner, in addition to a high range, high to low, also has a simmer range. You push the knob in and you have simmer high to low. And that gives you this ultimate control through the full range of cooking. When we're cooking, we all know we need to be able to sear. So that's what that full sear looks like. Nice, even flames. If you ever look at yours and you don't have all of those burning, one of them looks clogged, turn it off and check to make sure something hasn't clogged one of the holes. The control you have of that upper range is all the way down to here. You can still see that just barely. And then you push the knob in and keep turning. It extinguishes that upper ring of holes and now lights the lower ring. And then you can take this all the way down to its lowest simmer point. And I'll kind of shield it so you can see what that looks like. See that low flame? And it is comfortable to hold your hand here. At this lowest point, it's only 300 BTUs. But what's important about that is look at how much control you have through that lower range as well as the upper. Because let's face it, we all need to sear, but there's so many recipes that have you simmering or holding something or cooking at a lower temperature. So Wolf wanted to give you all of the control through the lower range that really complements the entire range of cooking, not just cooking something seared and fast. What you don't hear is you don't see it extinguishing and relighting. And what that means is a true low cooking temperature. You don't have to worry about it cycling. As I go to the upper range now, right? What you don't have to do is listen to it cycle on and off continuously, resulting in not being at any one temperature, but being at a range of temperatures. They do that by splitting the gas as it comes into the unit into a low pressure and a high pressure line. And what that ends up being is that full lit, non-extinguished, even cooking heat. So anytime that you're doing something that you can benefit. Now that low heat, you can actually melt chocolate without a double boiler. You can hold delicate sauces for long periods of time. Even something as simple as tomato soup. When you can hold it without that red volcano forming in the center as it starts to burn and gets worse and worse. So very, very functional through the entire range of the heats that allow you to cook almost anything. Now, with any other, as with any other high-powered burner, you will probably want to heat your pan before you start to cook in it. It just kind of opens up the pores of the pan and allows use a little bit less fat. But Wolf is not one you want to set that pan on there and turn the gas on high and walk away and go do something. It's high enough that within a few minutes, that pan is going to be really, really hot, maybe even too hot for what you're about to do. So in warming those pans, I usually start at the bottom of the upper range or slightly above the bottom of the upper range, and then I'll let it warm there. And then when I go to add the whatever I'm going to cook, you can turn that heat up and obtain that higher heat. But it is significantly powerful. If you haven't cooked on a Wolf gas surface before, just wanted to give you a little warning of how hot that can really get. Now, the other things that can come in addition to burners on a dual fuel range, you can get an indoor char or a griddle. And then in this case, I have a double griddle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what the char looks like. I don't have it in this configuration. I have it at someplace else in the kitchen. And so just to get a sense of what that looks like, I'm going to spin you around on the camera and take a look at that char. I promise. Here we go. Now, on this char, it is a ceramic infrared burner underneath. The char on the dual fuel range has two heat settings, high or low, and it allows you the full range of cooking. I'm just going to grill some lemons for our little scallop salad today, just to give you a sense of the kind of things that you can do on this char. I would say it's really well suited for vegetables, seafood, even chicken. I would not tend to do super fatty items on it. You can certainly grill mark a steak on here, but I wouldn't do things that were very fatty like burgers or something like that, only because that dripping of the fat in there is going to cause a significant amount of smoke. Not that you can't do it, but you'd probably have to stay with it. Alternatively, cooking on the griddle, like we're going to do in a few minutes, is perfect for those burgers. So I preheated this char about 15 minutes, and you probably can't hear it, but it's got some sizzle to it. And you ought to be able to get these nice grill marks on this almost right away. Let's take them off there and take a look. Oh yeah, got a little bit of char on there. And that'll just make for a delicious kind of a roasted lemon squeeze over our scallop and salad plate. It's kind of like doing, it's a cheater dressing. You can drizzle a little oil, squeeze a little grilled lemon juice over the top, and you've got everything you need. So that's how quick that was to get those char marks on. Lots of power, lots of heat, but still capable of being inside and doing all of the things that you might want to get out of your griddle. So back to this side. And let's talk about this griddle surface a little bit. So in the configurations, and I'll show you towards the end, all the configurations you can have on this dual fuel, in addition to burners, char, griddle combination, or griddle or French top. I don't have a French top live, but that is another possibility. But I want to zoom in and talk specifically about the griddle for just a few minutes now. So this griddle surface is a piece of alloy steel. It's very, very even. So you can cook from the front edge all the way to the back. It vents on the edges, and it has this nice little side rail that prevents food from pushing over into your burner well. I'm going to set this grate back in place. There we go. And now you season this like you would a cast iron skillet. You can't tell from your view right now, but it has a nice dark brown patina on it. And you get to that surface by, when it's first new from the factory, cleaning off the shipping oil. There's a little mineral coat that comes on it from the factory. Warm cloth with a little mild soap on it to clean that completely off. And then we're going to go through a seasoning process that's just like a cast iron skillet. Now, again, that's ownership pieces that one of the Rolf chefs, myself, or one of the other 4 Rolf chefs will lead you through. But the idea is I'm going to heat it up, open the pores of the metal, and then put a little fat on it as it cools, and then wipe all the excess off, and do that about 3 times. And what that will do is it kind of traps the fat on the surface pores of the surface, which makes it essentially non-stick. You still may choose to use a little fat when you're cooking something, like I'm going to use a little fat to cook the scallops in a second, but you don't end up having to do maybe as much fat because you have that pre-seasoned. So think about your cast iron skillet. This is going to function the same way, and it's going to be that non-stick. That being said, it's also super easy to clean. We're going to end up cleaning it just like steam cleaning. Once we're done, we'll turn the heat down to just above 200. And then once it's cooled to that temperature, we'll add some sparkling water or regular water, lift all the food impurities off the surface, and scrape them forward to this trough that is removable. The one thing I love about this griddle is that it really doesn't have any cold spots. I can cook from the back corner all the way to the front. And so let's put some food on here and take a look at the function of this griddle. I'm going to add just a little bit of fat there. And then we're going to add some sea scallops. You can't really see those either. There we go. But I promise at the end we'll get a camera shot of all the food. That sound is really good because when you put something on your griddle, what you want is to know that it's preheated and you have all of the power and it is the appropriate temperature. Now, I'll also tell you that when you're cooking on this, envision it as an infinite saute pan. Anything that you can cook on a saute pan, you can cook on this griddle surface. And that makes it extremely flexible because not only have you got more room, you're not going to cool the pan down when you add food to it. One of the problems when you saute is almost instantaneously the pan cools down and it has to add heat if you overcrowd it. With all of this space, even if it's just an 11-inch griddle, you have plenty of room without crowding the pan. Now, while I have those going, I'm also going to pan roast a few tomatoes to go with our lunch salad today. And I'm going to do those in a little skillet on the burner here. So I'm going to turn the burner on. Preheat this pan on medium, like I talked about medium heat. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of fat and some tomatoes and just kind of roast them in the pan a little bit. I don't know about where you are, but where we are in Minnesota, tomatoes are not yet full of flavor. They will be by August, but through these late spring and early summer, I almost get more flavor out of a tomato by adding a little heat to it. So my scallops are going to town there, and now I'm going to add a little bit of fat to this skillet. And then some tomatoes. And just let them roast, sizzle, and pop a little bit. And we'll check back on those in a second. Just want to coat them a little bit with a little bit of fat and just let them pop and roast. We can take a closer look in the pan there. Beautiful. You can see those. I'll slide them to the back edge of that pan so you can see them in there roasting. Really nice. I'm going to add just a little bit of salt. So as they roast, they will begin to kind of season and pop a little bit. On this other half of the griddle, check in. Our scallops are still doing their thing. On this other half of the griddle, I'm going to saute some green beans at the same time. Now, these were green beans that I had steamed in our convection steam oven, so they're nice and bright green. Steam blanched for about 4 minutes. And so now I'm just going to add those to this griddle. Same idea. I've got plenty of sizzle going on. I'll turn those tomatoes down because they're blistering beautifully. So now with all this going on, you can see that I'm really cooking a small amount, but you could do a large group of people. You could do things like fajitas with peppers and onions. You could do seared brats. You could do smash burgers. You could do seared proteins and other items and still keep this side clear for your vegetable or some other protein. And all I'm doing is put a little char on these beans, and then we're just going to move them and plate them up with our salad. Scallops have been sitting here. Let's take a quick peek. I'm expecting them to not stick and have a nice crust on it. Let's see how we did. Oh, I don't know if you can see that. Oh, you can see that. You'll see it better once Kelly takes a close-up shot, but you can see you got a really nice crust on there. And these are just dry pack scallops, little side-on scallops. You never want your scallops to be packed in a saline solution of up to 25% for freshness. I don't know about you, but I don't need anything added to my seafood for freshness. I would just as soon have fresh seafood, if you can catch my drift. Okay, so to my green beans here, I'm just going to add a little bit of butter to finish that flavor. And you can see all of this on the grill going on the surface at the same time. I can pan over and you can see the tomatoes roasting in this pan. We got some blister spots on them. I'm going to focus for a second. Focus. Focus. Sorry about that. Just trying to get it to sharpen its. There we go. Sharpen that picture a little bit. But you can see the little roasted edges on those. They're just charring up. They'll pop and they'll add that little sweet bit of acidity to our salad. Back over here to our green beans, and they have a nice brown char on them, but they stayed nice and crispy because we had blanched them. And they also kept their bright green color. Again, because of that blanching, that really helps. So those green beans are done. Let's put those off to a plate. What we're going to do is we're going to come off the griddle, and then we're going to talk about all of the features of the oven of this dual fuel range. And then we'll come back and show you this food all plated after the fact. All right, our tomatoes are ready to come off. Our scallops are ready. So we'll take those, we'll put them off to the salad plate. Again, we'll show you this close up of the food with a better image in just a moment after we talk about the range inside. So we'll let this cool a few minutes, and then if we get a chance at the end, I can clean it for you. I am going to turn the heat down to just above 200. I'm going to take what's called a bench knife. Whoop, here we go. Bench knife has a nice flat edge on it, nothing with a curve. And then I just want to scrape any food that's stuck to the surface during that process right to this little tray in the front. And then after it cools a little bit, we'll come back and quickly clean it. But that's how easy it is to clean this griddle. It is cook on it, scrape the food off, and then we'll steam clean it. So let's talk about the range. Oh, we have a question. Are we back in sync now? Fabulous. Had a little trouble with the audio. Okay. Now let's change our focus down to the range controls underneath. And in your dual fuel range, they have a pop out. I'll close it so you can see it, but it's a pop out display that, and other than having a beautiful clock on it, has some other information. All of the cooking modes are on the bezel of your oven control. Now we just used the griddle, and the control on that griddle is from 100 up to 450. Now in my case with the double griddle, I have 2 heating elements underneath, and the single griddle 11-inch wide has 1 control. I have the 48-inch range, so I have 2 oven controls, one on this side and one that you can't see. But as we go around that bezel, it has, if the word has a fan in front of it, little fan symbol, that means it's using convection. So the modes are straight convection, convection roast, warm, like a warming drawer, G for gourmet, and I'll come back and talk about that in a second, self-clean, more, which I'll also talk about in a second, and then regular roast, regular broil, regular bake, or off. So if I wanted to set the temperature, I select the cooking mode on the bezel, and then I turn the knob to adjust the temperature. And you can see I'm able to quickly adjust that temperature up or down. And then once I have it set where I want, you hit the start button on the screen. And now you'll see a little flame symbol there in the center of that display. It's slowly going to turn red as the oven preheats. And this gives you all that control right here. Now, let's talk about some of those modes. What I'd like to do is take a peek into this oven so that you can see where the heating elements are. And in order to do that, I'm going to actually use an example of one of our wall ovens because it's easier for you to see with the camera. So let's go into this oven. Now this is the same configuration as the oven that is under in your range. It has a slightly curved back. it has fans in the very corner of the box. And inside those fans, they run from the top to the bottom, and they have an embedded heating element. So there's a heating element on the left in the back and a heating element on the right inside the fan housing. And then additionally, there's a bake element that's under the floor of the oven and a broil element that is on the top of the oven cavity. Now, these four elements work together and they have sensors and talk to each other. So when they're heating the oven under convection, for instance, or one of those combination modes that use the bake element or the broil element in addition to the convection element, it will do so by turning them off and on, cycling through them to get the most even heat possible. The oven cavity comes with 2 full extension racks, which makes it easy for heavier items. These racks are easily positioned at any of the 6 positions in the oven. They're easy to move, and I will take, during your ownership session, we can take you through those, how to move those racks, and I'll send that separately to owners after the fact, but it's something that know that these are easy to position in any place. Your probe is connected at the very top of the oven, and it'll come with this a blue silicone cord. It is different than probes you may have for another oven if you have a wall oven or a steam oven. This probe is different, and so you shouldn't be swapping them around. But note that this probe only measures in the last 3/4 of an inch. The most important thing to remember is this probe is your friend, because when it's in the oven, it will tell you what's going on inside what you're cooking. But you do have to think about where you're going to put it. Like if I'm going to put this into a piece of chicken to know when it's done, if you think about a chicken breast having a thick end and a thin end, it's very hard to probe this way, right? You want to make sure you're probing in a way so that you've covered the probe through maybe in the thinner end, and yet you're measuring it in this thicker end. If you're cooking something like a beef tenderloin, again, this is a hard way to probe. Think about coming in at an angle where you end up in the center of that food. You want to make sure that the probe is, this part is covered and that it's installed. Now, a lot of items, a lot of modes that require the probe are actually not going to have any preheat required. They're only going to say, probe insert into the food, place it in the oven, and turn it on. The broil element, just one caution. It is an extremely powerful broil element. If you're someone who likes to cook on broil, make sure that you start in the middle of the oven, maybe position 4 instead of position 6, until you get used to the power of that broiler. I had a customer who treated it like a previous oven she had. She put a steak on the top shelf, put it all the way up, put it on broil, got distracted for a moment, and ended up burning the entire roof of the oven. So be very aware when you're using the broiler that it is a very powerful broiler. That being said, the bake element that's under the floor should not be trapped in any way. So nothing goes on the bottom of your wolf range. No liner, no foil, because you don't want to trap the heat between that hidden element and whatever you've lined it with, because that will damage the blue porcelain bottom of the range. So the idea is if you need to catch something that might be spilling or cooking over the edge, just put a pan or a piece of foil on the lowest rack and you can catch those items there. Very straightforward, but also quite important that you don't end up either covering the bottom or not being aware of how powerful the broiler is. So if we return to this dual fuel range, and I want to show you what the probe screen looks like once it's plugged in. So I'm going to zoom you back down to that control. There we go. And then I'm going to plug in the probe in the unit. And then we'll select a mode. And if you can see from the screen here, As soon as the probe is installed, it then shows you probe temperature right there. And if I want to adjust that probe temperature, all I have to do is hit it, and it says now set. I know you can't read these words, but it says set and the probe. And then I can adjust the probe temperature just like you adjust the oven temperature. So I'll set it for 125 and then hit set. And now it has that alarm there. What will happen out here is it will maintain the temperature that you have set the oven for, with the probe temperature showing on here. I touched it and it went back up again. But that's right there for you. Now you can also connect this range to your phone or wirelessly monitor different elements of that. And that's absolutely easy to do. I'm going to stop this because you can see what's going to happen is it's showing the set temperature and that current probe temperature, as well as the oven temperature, all in this one little space. All right, so if we turn that off, I want to go to show you a couple other settings on this bezel that are of particular importance. If you go around till it says more, here are these additional features that aren't on the bezel. There's proof, and proof is where you can use your oven cavity to let dough double in size. Often bread recipes say place it in a warm area and allow it to double in size. Well, a proofing oven allows you at a very low temperature. Wolf's commitment to low temperature heat in the oven, just like it was in the on the cooktop, allows you to really control that temperature of the proof. So that's a really nice choice there. Also is dehydrate. Again, if you want to dehydrate fruit or herbs or citrus or tomatoes, you have the whole range of dehydrate here with a temperature range available down to about 110 degrees. Also in this more is stone, and this is where you would use your pizza stone. And this is a mode that Wolf makes a pizza stone specific for this unit. This comes as an accessory, and it will allow you to use pizza, different things you could bake on a pizza stone. The Wolf stone is particularly nice, thick stone. It comes with a little rack and a pizza peel as an accessory. And then the last thing you can do here on the more is this connect feature. And the connect feature I'll walk you through as an owner, but what it allows you to do is you set to connect, and then it is controllable from your phone for some features. Typically preheating the oven, monitoring a temperature, those kind of things, turning an oven off from your phone. It is specific to your serial number, so it's not like someone else can be controlling your range from afar. The other thing on the bezel I want to talk about is Gourmet, and it's represented with just a simple G. And Gourmet is the setting on your range where you can tell it what you're cooking, and the range will make the rest of the decisions. So you have categories like meat, fish, baked goods, vegetables, pizza, and you simply select that, and then it'll ask you what kind of meat. So I picked beef. It'll ask you the cut. I picked tenderloin. And then it'll ask you how done you want it. Know that you have the ability to adjust that doneness, just like we showed before, right? But let's pick one. And then it says done. It's going to give you a little recap of what you selected. It says no preheat required, rack position 3, probe in the thickest part, convection roast at 450, start. And so you hit start, and the oven takes over and does all of that without you having to adjust it. No user interface required. What I find useful about that is it can be your little chef in the range. If you're cooking with, maybe you haven't used convection in a range before, certainly not one with the fans in the corner, it can kind of help coach you as to something you've cooked numerous times. How do I cook it in this oven with all of these 4 different heating elements instead of just an upper and a lower heating element? So it's the little chef in the oven that will help you create delicious dishes. It does come with a cookbook as well, and I use that also to tell people this is kind of an example. The recipes are quite fine, but you may have your own recipes for some of those things too. And I would look to the one that's the most similar to help coach you into which mode to choose. So that is the oven with all the controls right here. And then the interaction with this display screen. I want to pull up a graphic here in a moment and show you the different configurations that this range is available in, so that just to give you a sense of size. And then while that graphic is up, I'll also finish the plate. And when we come back, we'll show you the food. Then we'll come back to this position and we'll take on any questions that you may have. So if you just take a look, and I know this is small print, but just to remind you what's available, this range comes in 4 sizes: 30, 36, 48, and 60. And in those sizes, there are numerous configurations. For the 30, it's all burners. For the 36, it can be 6 or 4 burners, and other items in between. Your options in between include a char, which is that indoor grill we talked about, or a single griddle on a 36. Once you get to a 48, in addition to having all 8 burners, you can get a char and a griddle, a double griddle, or a French top, or a single char and a single griddle with 6 burners. I know that's a lot of info, but basically there's many configurations on the 48, as well as the 60. You see all those options listed there. If you are interested in the French top itself is a little bit different style of cooking. It's very traditional in some classic French cuisines where you have a lot of sauces going on, and you can cook in any portion of that, hottest in the center, coolest to the edges. But it really is most useful when you are doing a lot of sauces, okay? So if you're interested in that French top, let's make a point to connect and let me talk you through how it works. You can just send me an email. We'll set up a time to talk. But this is that configuration. And if you got any questions about these configurations as well, that's something that can be provided by your sales associate, or just simply reaching out to one of us. So Kelly's going to switch the camera so that she can show you our plate of food here. How we finished and everything we cooked. Sorry for the live camera action, but that's just how it works. You can see we've got our scallops, seared scallops here, our sauteed green beans, our grilled lemon from the char, and then some pan roasted tomatoes down there. All of that comes together in this beautiful plate. That's nice. Then what we'll do is we'll just come back, and now we'll open it up to questions that you may have. If you don't, you can put them in the chat section right there, and I will address them. If you feel like your question is something that's more intricate or more detailed that you want to handle in this forum, then I would just encourage you to send me an email, and I'll be happy to gather whatever information, reach out to you, and provide those answers. But that is the quick overview of all of the versatility and functionality of a dual fuel range, from every possible configuration on top in terms of a gas cooking surface to super powerful and versatile ovens with all of the latest technology in terms of gourmet and connectivity, as well as probing. Are there any questions? Okay, I'll take that silence as evidence that we covered everything that you had on your mind. Again, if you come up with a question later, don't hesitate to reach out to us. I will send a recording of this particular session to you following the session so that you have this to refer back to. We look forward to seeing you in one of our showrooms sometime soon, and happy cooking. Have a great day.